Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Isola issue 1 from Image Comics. This is by Brandon Fletcher and Carl Kerschel. Art by Carl Kerschel and Msak, I don't know how to pronounce that, Aditiata Bidikar on letters. Now, the interior, the cover is really cool, I thought. Nicely done. The interior where the copyright information and artist names has this like tribal look to it. It's kind of cool. And then you jump in and it's just got your generic computerized Disney art. Alright, this story is about this young lady who is escorting a weird tiger somewhere, probably to get some help. Apparently the queen transformed into a tiger that has like blue and greens instead of normal tiger colors. And I think the tiger's name is Olwen. And then she wakes up from a nightmare about the tiger being dead, and they do some walking, Lord of the Rings type walking, and they avoid some bad guys and animals. And then they come across a big carcass. The tiger eats because it's a tiger. And there's some hunters. And then they think they avoid them. Then they get ambushed. And she's forced to fight them, which she should have killed them a lot faster than she did, honestly, because she keeps threatening them and doing nothing. And then they chase off one of the guys. The tiger didn't kill him, and she's like, "Why didn't you do something? What are you waiting for? Get in there and kill something." And the tiger gives her an indignant look like, "That's too good for you, being a tiger and all." So if you're trapped in animal form, come on, when in Rome. But overall, the story was okay. It was just a little slow getting started, but not bad. The art's pretty decent. I actually liked it. I thought it was pretty well done. It had that kind of like high quality anime, I would call it, which I don't like anime, but this didn't have the goofy faces. It was a lot more controlled. But our problem is actually the protagonist, or as I call her, girl hero type 4, because there's nothing memorable about her other than the scar on the bridge of her nose, which usually just makes her face look weird. So she has the back knot hair with the sides shaved, which of course is a current trend in comics. So she looks like pretty much, and she's a minority on top of that. So she looks like every other generic girl hero out there. And since this is kind of a fantasy setting, they call her a witch at one point, so I'm sure she's very powerful and empowered other than just her awesome sword skills. She doesn't seem to really be at risk at any point. The tiger is, but she's not. But the whole shaved head thing, come on guys, try something new. So we don't really know anything about her. I don't really care. She's just kind of forgettable. She's not very good at adventuring because she really waits till the last minute to do anything about these guys that she knows are a problem. So, and she keeps giving away that the tiger is the queen. She keeps calling her Majesty. Like, really, you gotta work it out. Like, hey, I'm gonna have to call you Big Kitty or something for the purposes of this adventure until we get you back in form. I need you to understand that I can't keep calling you Majesty because it will get you killed. So, other than that, I don't really care about the protagonist in any way, except I know that she's the protagonist. That's it. That's all there is to like about her. We don't know anything about her. There's no background. There's nothing unique about her. She looks like every other female hero. Actually, she looks like a social justice knockoff version of the girl from The Last Airbender. Otherwise, it was a decent story. I liked it. It was just kind of bland and forgettable. We have no reason explained to us who this girl is, why she's escorting this tiger, why the queen is transformed. We have no background whatsoever to work with. That is not really helpful. Even a brief synopsis as to what's going on would have been helpful. Even vague. No matter how vague it was, it would have been useful. So I would recommend this if you're really into anime, because it has kind of that same type of plot line. Otherwise, I think the average person just isn't going to care about it. It was well done. There's not enough to go on. I don't care about the generic girl hero. Yeah, she's got her head, sides of her head shaved. Ooh, so original. Yeah, like everybody else. There's no background on anyone. I didn't feel like I connected with any of the characters because there's a distinct lack of background. For all I know, this is all that girl's fault and she deserves all these problems. So I don't know. But I would recommend it if you're really into long story form, because I have a feeling this is going to be a long drawn out Robert Kirkman style boringness. If you're into that, then yeah, this is probably for you. It's definitely got a lot of fantasy elements to it, so I'm sure that'll be appealing to some as well. I'll probably check out a few more issues to see if it picks up, but right now I just don't know where anything's going, and I don't particularly care about the protagonist. But I like the big kitty cat cat, so I'll pick up issue 2. But beyond that, it seems like it's okay. So I'd say it's probably worth the $4. It was pretty thick as far as page count goes, and the cover quality is really good. Paper quality in general is fantastic. It's definitely above anything from Marvel, and it was better written than anything from Marvel, so I'll give them credit on that one. But that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard, be sure and hit like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Isola issue 2 from Image Comics 2018. Story by Brandon Fletcher and Carl Kerschel. Art by Carl Kerschel and Mazak. Letters by Aditya Bidikar. Now we pick up not long after we left off from the look of it. Olwen the cat and her guard are walking through the mountains, and the tiger appears to be either lethargic or tired and starts seeing these like hallucinations of a island or something, and it lays down, and the guard lady thinks that maybe it's sick or just needs food, so she finds some ruins and decides to go look in them. She tells the tiger she'll be back shortly, and she goes into the ruins where she meets a young girl, tries to make friends with her, gives her some food, but then a man comes along and frightens her off. And the man apparently knows the girl. His name is Bendix, and he calls her Rook. I don't know if her name is Rook or it's short for Rookie. Regardless, the cat wakes up and meets that weird guy we met in issue 1, and his name is Moro, so he seems really odd and sinister in my opinion. But anyway, Bendix and Rook are down in the ruins of one of these buildings, which looks like a library. She asks about maps or useful books, and he says, nah, have a drink, I don't care about any of that, take whatever you want. Then he kind of comes on to her, but before things get too weird, they are attacked by some wolves. Rook manages to get out of there with a book. I'm not going to tell you how, and she comes back to the campsite to find a scavenger, and the tiger's missing, and she thinks this guy did it, but he's got a lot of friends, which kind of jump up on her. Alright, now, overall, this was actually a really good issue. The art style is growing on me. It's got a real anime look, like Disney animation look, that I generally don't like, but it works pretty well for the story. I think this actually would be better in trade paperback format. I kind of wish they had gone straight to that. I think it works better for the storytelling that they're trying to do here, but it is pretty good. It was a lot of fun to read. $4, it's about right. That was okay for $4. I was fine with that. So I think the price point's fine. The art's pretty good for the style that it's in. The story is pretty simplistic, really. It's not an all ages book. There is some sexual innuendo, and it is fairly violent at times. Not overly gory, but gory enough that anybody under teenage years probably not appropriate for. So I would recommend this one. I thought it was pretty fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm gonna pick up issue 3. I think this story arc is only 5 or 6 parts long, so we're going to find out more about what happened with the tiger in the next issue as the paths of the two main characters diverge, and we're focusing on the tiger this time. So it should be pretty good. I'm looking forward to it. I actually really like the paper quality on this too. It's pretty good, shockingly. Not used to that, but I would recommend this one. I thought it was pretty fun. It's not an action story, and the action scenes are a little bit disjointed, but I'm okay with it. It leaves your mind to interpret that. If you're looking for a story as opposed to an action book, this one has a pretty interesting story. It's not a deep story, but it is a story nonetheless. It was a pretty fun read. So if you get a chance to check it out, I recommend it. First issue's been through at least 2 printings. You should be able to find that one, and you could probably find it relatively cheap, at least cover price. I think you could probably find it for a little under that even. But that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you like the video, hit like. If you like what we're doing here, consider subscribing, and we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Isola issue 3. This is from Brendan Fletcher and Carl Kerschel. Story, Carl Kerschel and Mstiek did the art. Aditya Bidikar was the letterer. Now we focus more on Queen Olwen in this episode because she got split up from Rook by following this crazy goofy old guy, and now she's having a vision of Rook being filled with arrows and laying on the same limestone slab that she had been on when Rook had this vision. And the same thing with the fox. And then we're drawn back to reality where there's a bunch of arrows in this flat rock. The tiger is looking at it, and there's no body this time. And the creepy weirdo is leading her on. Meanwhile, Rook is more or less taken hostage by these guys that confronted her. She lets them go. That the leader, who has this skull thing, seems to indicate that he knows something about the death of her loved ones, and he also knows that the tiger is really the queen of Mar, and that there is some sort of relationship between the two of them, because how else would she be with the tiger? Overtones that they're lesbians, whatever. Well, then we learn that Moro, the creepy weird guy, decided to do some surgery on himself and tried to get closer to animals by sewing a bird arm or wing onto where his arm used to be. And it's really creepy and weird. Then the tiger and him decide to cross the river. The tiger pushes him in to be silly, I guess. And the guys that have Rook captive see the fox and they try to shoot it, but the arrow goes through it and it's obviously a ghost, and they go chasing after it. She uses that opportunity to escape, and the ghost fox gives Rook some indication as to which way Moro and the tiger went. Meanwhile, Moro and the tiger end up in a village, and Rook is attacked by these like guys with animal heads and is taken to where Moro is, and she's in her underwear for whatever reason. Meanwhile, Olwen comes out of some pond with just the tiger head and a human body, which looks really silly. That's kind of the issue. I didn't like this issue nearly as much. It was jumping around a little too much. They glossed over what was going on with Olwen at this village, and I really think that should have been explored in more detail as to what this pool of water is that she was in, how they transformed her back to mostly a human. I think that was really lacking in this issue, and although they do seem to indicate with the preview for next issue that she will have a human head again, I think it was just awkward and weird to have her suddenly emerge from this pool without any explanation at all. There is some indication that there was a traitor in their midst at the castle of Mar, but it's not really explained, and it's getting really frustrating with no backstory to work with as to what happened. And it's been 3 issues. I know the story arc's only like 5. I don't understand what's really going on, and they're trying to be evasive, but really it's just making me lose interest. It was a pretty decent issue overall, but I don't really think that I got $4 worth out of it. The art style has grown on me, but the storytelling is slipping a little bit, and hopefully they'll pick it up. I'll give them another issue. I'll probably read the rest of the story arc out to issue 5. So far, I'm starting to wane on interest here because there's a lot of allusions to things that are going on without ever confirming it or getting to the point, and it's a little frustrating from a reading standpoint. They're trying too hard to be mysterious and not focusing on the narrative that is going to make me interested in buying the next issue. So overall, would I recommend it? Yeah, if you've already picked up the first 2 issues. If you're jumping in here, don't bother. It's not going to make any sense. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense now. It's going to make a whole lot less sense if you jump into issue 3. In that regard, if you're a completionist like I am, yeah, pick up issue 3 just so you can see if it's going to continue to be something you're interested in. They're quickly losing me. And I don't really care about the whole lesbian angle. That's really kind of overplayed and trite at this point. I think they're trying too hard to use that as some sort of shock value, and it's really lost in the modern era. 20 years ago, that would have been a much more shocking revelation. Now I just don't care. I'm like, okay, they were having an affair. Whatever. What does that have to do with the storyline? Nothing. Unless they're going to get around to it eventually. But I don't know because they won't tell me anything. So that's my major complaints. Otherwise, it was an okay issue. I would wait till you get it for like $2 though. Then I would feel more like I got my money's worth out of it because it's starting to lose me, like I said. But that'll do it for me. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. Consider subscribing so you never miss an episode. And if you want to support me, Patreon link should be in the About page or in the video description. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Isola issue 4. This story is by Brendan Fletcher and Carl Kerschel. Art by Carl Kerschel and Mazak. Letters by Aditya Bidikar. This is from the 2018 series. And we get a flashback in the beginning here of what happened that led to the queen being transformed into a tiger. Now Rook had to kill somebody to try and stop it, but it was too late. The transformation had already happened. Although she's been traveling with the tiger for some time, and this is obviously a flashback. She is in this village place with these half creatures that we saw from last issue, and she's in some sort of memory state where she's like dreaming or something, and she sees the queen with a tiger head but a human body, and the queen calls her a murderer, and that wakes the girl up, and they realize that the town is under siege by the mercenaries that were following them. Now just when you think things are going to get bad, her vision comes true, and it is not pleasant. So in order to save the injured party, the weird priests of this place want a sacrifice, and they ask the girl to do it, trying to be as vague as possible. It was a good issue. A lot happened plot-wise, and it is a pretty action-packed issue, but this is not a good launching point. If you're looking to get into the series, you definitely need to read the previous issues to understand what's going on in this one. But I would recommend it. I thought it was good. It's a pretty interesting story so far. It's straightforward, but it is pretty fun, and I thought it was definitely worth a read. Was it really worth $4? Probably not. It's more of a $2 book. It's definitely written for the trade paperback, but it is a pretty interesting story. I personally would probably just wait till the trade paperback if I knew more about it when I first picked it up. That being said, I still thought it was good, so if you're into getting the monthly books or you really can't wait, definitely look into it and consider picking it up. Otherwise, just wait for the trade. It's only a 5-issue arc from the sound of it, maybe 6 issues, so it should be about to wrap up. I don't think the trade paperback will be more than the individual issues. It'll probably be about the same price, so you may just want to wait for that. That's my recommendation on the matter. I thought it was fun. This would be a recommend, but you do need to get caught up on the other issues for this to make any sense at all. So that's going to do it for me. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Isola issue 5 from Image Comics. This is written by Brendan Fletcher and Carl Kerschel. Art by Carl Kerschel and Mazak. Aditya Bidikar on letters. Now overall this was the end of the story arc, the end of the trade paperback, if you will. Rook and Olwen are in this village. It's not Isola, but they're there. And Olwen's been injured very severely from last issue. Unfortunately, Rook has to leave the village with her. Things are not going well, and there's this weird fox that is gazing at people. It's symbolic, obviously. This is some sort of spiritual animal to them. Rook has to take Olwen out of the village, and it looks like a death sentence. Olwen's severely injured. They exchange some really touching moments because they're obviously in a lesbian relationship, because it's necessary to have lesbians, and interracial lesbians at that. But Olwen is having visions, and despite the fact that she's in human form, it looks like she's gonna die, and Rook has to take her to this sacred place where Olwen has a vision, and then things kind of reset. Now this is obviously going to be a short review because I don't want to spoil too much of the story. It's well done. It's just clearly written for the trade. Now this completes the first story arc. The series won't be back until January of 2019, and I know the first trade is coming out. If you like fantasy and romance type stuff, it's not a bad book. It's pretty well done. It's really a little bit of a disappointment on the end of the story arc, but I think they're just trying to drag it out a little bit for future issues. Would I recommend the issue? Yes. It's not something I normally would read, but I have found myself grabbing the issues right away, even though they're not on my pull list. So it's intrigued me enough to keep me coming back. I will probably buy the next issue. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was pretty well done, and although I was disappointed with the end of the arc, I thought it was a little lazy and a bit of a cop-out. I see why they did it. I think it could end up being really good. So hopefully they continue to maintain a level of quality and maybe pick up the pace a little bit, get the story going a little more, because some of what happens is a little slow roll. You know, if you're looking for a fast-paced book, this is not it. This is one you're going to be reading for a very long time, but I would honestly wait for the trade paperbacks. I don't think this is formatted well for monthlies. As far as the end of the story arc, I thought it was a little disappointing, but it was still pretty good. So I'd recommend it, especially if you can find it for less than cover price. I don't think I'd pay more than the $4 cover price for it. But that's just my opinion on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help support the channel, Patreon link is in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.